Right. Hold on to your crumpets, because what I'm about to tell you will have you spitting out your Earl Grey faster than you can say, "God save the King." Picture this. King Charles, barely 2 years into his reign, allegedly considering stepping aside for William during what was supposed to be a routine solo engagement. Now, before you think I've gone completely balmy, let me tell you why palace insiders are whispering about the most shocking constitutional shake-up since Edward VIII decided love was more important than the crown. If you're as obsessed with royal drama as I am, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because Royal Pancake serves up the juiciest royal revelations hotter than a Sunday roast. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's cooking in the palace kitchens. So here's the thing about being monarch that nobody tells you in the job description, assuming there actually is one tucked away in some dusty Buckingham Palace filing cabinet. It's not all waving from gold carriages and having people curtsy when you walk into rooms. Charles has discovered what his mother knew all too well. Being king is rather like being the world's most scrutinized pensioner, with the added pressure of an entire Commonwealth watching your every move. And lately, that pressure has been mounting faster than debt on a student's credit card. The whispers started during Charles' recent solo trip to Germany, his first major international engagement without Camilla by his side since the coronation. Now, you might think, what's a big deal? The man's nearly 75. Surely he can manage a quick jaunt to Berlin without his missus. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Sources close to the palace, and by sources I mean people who polish the royal silver, suggest that during those quiet moments between state dinners and diplomatic handshakes, Charles had what can only be described as a proper existential crisis. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been waiting your entire life for a promotion, 73 years to be precise, longer than most people spend on this planet. And when you finally get the corner office, you realize the view isn't quite what you expected. The weight of the crown, both literally and metaphorically, has been heavier than anticipated. Charles went into this trip thinking about legacy, about what kind of king he wants to be remembered as, and apparently came out questioning whether he's the right person for the job at all. But here's where the plot thickens like custard on a cold day. During a private moment in his hotel suite, Charles reportedly made several phone calls back to London. Not to Camilla, not to his private secretary, but to William. Multiple calls. Long ones. The kind of conversations that palace staff describe as intense and unprecedented. Now, when palace staff use words like that, you know something proper mental is happening behind those gilded doors. What could possibly prompt a newly crowned king to consider such a drastic move? Well, let's start with the obvious elephant in the room, or should I say, the elephant wearing a crown. Charles' age has become increasingly apparent in recent months. While his mother managed to maintain her duties well into her 90s, Charles is starting his reign at an age when most people are thinking about retirement villages and afternoon naps. The physical demands of modern monarchy, the constant travel, the endless ceremonies, the diplomatic dinners that go on longer than a cricket match, it's all taking its toll. Then there's the matter of public perception, because let's be brutally honest here, Charles has never been as popular as his son. William represents everything the modern monarchy needs to survive in the 21st century. His younger, more relatable, and crucially, married to Catherine, who has become something of a national treasure. The couple represents stability, family values, and a fresh approach to royal duties that resonates with younger generations. Charles, bless him, is still fighting the ghost of Diana and decades of public scrutiny about his personal life. But wait, there's more, because this story has more layers than a proper trifle. The constitutional implications of what Charles is allegedly considering are absolutely staggering. We're not talking about a simple handover like passing the TV remote. The British monarchy doesn't do voluntary abdication well. The last time someone tried it, we ended up with a constitutional crisis that nearly brought down the entire system. Edward VIII's abdication in 1936 was such a shock to the establishment that they are still probably having nightmares about it in Whitehall. However, and this is crucial, times have changed rather dramatically since 1936. Modern monarchies across Europe have normalized abdication. The Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, they've all managed transitions without their kingdoms collapsing into chaos. Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands stepped aside for her son Willem-Alexander in 2013. King Albert II of Belgium abdicated in favor of his son Philippe the same year, and King Juan Carlos of Spain abdicated for his son Felipe in 2014. It's become as common as changing prime ministers, though admittedly with better succession planning. The question becomes whether Britain is ready for such a modern approach to monarchy. Charles allegedly believes that William is better positioned to navigate the challenges facing the institution. Climate change activism, which has been Charles's passion for decades, might be better served by someone who can dedicate the next 30 years to the cause rather than the next 10. The Commonwealth relationships, particularly with countries questioning their ties to the British Crown, might benefit from a younger, more dynamic approach. Now here's where the story gets properly interesting. William, according to palace sources, was initially resistant to the idea. Unlike his father, who spent decades preparing and arguably yearning for the role, William has seen firsthand the personal cost of royal duty. He watched his mother struggle with media attention, witnessed his father's long wait for the throne, and has worked hard to maintain some semblance of normal family life for his own children. The prospect of becoming king decades earlier than expected is apparently both thrilling and terrifying. Catherine's role in these discussions cannot be understated. She's reportedly been Charles's strongest advocate for patience, suggesting that the king deserves time to establish his own legacy before considering such a dramatic step. Her influence on both Charles and William has grown significantly since becoming Princess of Wales, and her opinion carries considerable weight in family decisions. She understands better than anyone the pressure that comes with being the heir-apparent spouse. The practical implications of such a transition would be mind-boggling. Charles would likely retain the title of king but step back from day-to-day duties, similar to how his father Prince Philip eventually retired from official engagements. William would become regent or co-monarch, handling the majority of state functions while Charles focuses on his environmental initiatives and charitable work. It would require parliamentary approval, constitutional amendments, and probably more legal paperwork than Brexit, which is saying something. But here's the thing that makes this whole scenario absolutely fascinating from a historical perspective. If Charles does step aside for William, he will be doing something remarkable, choosing the institution over personal ambition. After waiting longer than any heir in British history, voluntarily stepping aside would demonstrate the kind of selfless service that the monarchy claims to represent. It would be the ultimate act of putting duty before self-interest. The timing of these alleged discussions is also significant. Charles's solo trip to Germany was meant to demonstrate his capability as an independent monarch, his ability to handle major diplomatic responsibilities without support. Instead, it appears to have highlighted the challenges he faces and prompted serious reflection about the future of his reign. Sometimes the most revealing moments happen when we think nobody is watching. Public reaction to such news would likely be mixed, much like everything involving the royal family these days. Charles's supporters would argue that he deserves his time as king after decades of preparation. William's supporters would celebrate the prospect of a younger, more modern monarchy. Republicans would probably claim it proves the entire system is fundamentally flawed. Meanwhile, the rest of us would probably just be grateful for something more interesting than political scandals to discuss over Sunday dinner. The international implications would be equally fascinating. Commonwealth countries still debating their relationships with the British monarchy might view a Charles to William transition as an opportunity for fresh negotiations. Countries like Australia and Canada, where Republican sentiment has been growing, might see a new king as either a reason to maintain ties or a perfect moment to finally cut them. What makes this potential scenario even more intriguing is how it reflects broader changes in society's approach to aging, work, and retirement. Charles stepping aside wouldn't be failure. It would be recognition that different stages of life call for different contributions. He could remain involved in causes he's passionate about without the constitutional constraints that limit monarchs' political activities. Of course, all of this remains speculation based on whispered conversations and unnamed sources. The palace has remained characteristically tight-lipped about any succession discussions, which in royal terms means absolutely nothing because they deny the sky was blue if it served their purposes. But the very fact that such conversations are allegedly happening represents a seismic shift in thinking about the nature of monarchical duty and the future of the institution. Whether Charles actually hands over significant responsibilities to William remains to be seen, but the mere possibility has already changed how we think about the modern monarchy. It suggests an institution capable of adaptation, willing to prioritize effectiveness over tradition, and brave enough to consider radical solutions to contemporary challenges. Right then, that's quite enough constitutional speculation for one day. What do you think? Should Charles step aside for William, or does he deserve his moment as king after decades of waiting? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into royal drama, make sure you're subscribed to Royal Pancakes for more palace intrigue and constitutional chaos. Thanks for watching.